everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we are talking about Star Trek Beyond. Released in 2016. Stu's got that 4K. Always one-upping me with the 4K. I've got it on Blu-ray here. I'm actually thinking about buying that 4K set that you've got. I don't normally like to buy movies that are in a 3-pack like that. You know, like 3 movies in one packaging. I like to have, just because I'm weird and stupid, I like to have each individual movie displayed on the shelf.
I do too. And
so I've got that with the Blu-ray, and I like my Blu-ray slip covers and everything. So rather than buying them again on 4K and probably not having slip covers and whatnot, I'm thinking about just buying that trilogy just so I've got it on 4K. But I also can kind of still have my cool my cool individual slip covers with the Blu-ray. Maybe that's stupid. I don't know. It's double dipping for sure. But but hey, you know what? We all have our own little things. But anyway,
I mean, the 4Ks look fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I wish that this Into Darkness has those IMAX scenes, which look really good.
Yeah,
on Blu-ray. So I imagine they'd look really good on 4K. I wish this one had some IMAX scenes. That'd be pretty cool. But
yeah.
But anyway, this was directed by Justin Lin, released in 2016, written by Simon Pegg and Doug Young, and starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, John Cho, Simon Pegg, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, Anton Yelchin, and Idris Elba. This was produced by J.J. Abrams, but the first 2 were directed by J.J. Abrams, and then Justin Lin, fresh off of his Fast and Furious success, he did movies 3 through 6 of Fast and Furious franchise, decided to leave the Fast and Furious and move on to Star Trek. And then eventually go back to Fast and Furious, I think. But yeah, this was released in 2016, about a year after Leonard Nimoy passed away, and unfortunately, Anton Yelchin passed away about a month before the movie came out.
Yeah,
but this was so far. There's been talks about a 4th movie, then it got canceled, and then it was coming back, and I have no idea what the case is. And I don't think it's happening now.
It's happening.
It is happening. Okay.
Yeah. Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto have signed on for a 4th movie.
Nice. Okay. Well, I hope we get to see it, because I had not seen this movie since I saw it in the theater, and I remember really liking it in the theater, and I don't know why I never bothered to watch it again, but I didn't. And so watching it yesterday was not quite like watching it for the first time, because there were certain things I remembered. But there was a lot that I didn't remember. And so I actually had a good time watching it yesterday. What about you?
I had a good time watching it. I watched it not yesterday, but the night before last. And I had a really good time watching it. I still like the first one the best.
Yeah, me too.
That first one is just it's so good.
Yeah, it's really well done. Yeah.
But this one is this one is still pretty good.
I like this one more than the second one, I think. I don't hate the second one like a lot of Star Trek fans do. A lot of old school Star Trek fans. But I think the longer that time goes on, I dislike the whole Wrath of Khan stuff that they did in the second one. That being said, though, I do love Benedict Cumberbatch in it. But I think I enjoy this movie more than that one. They're all still really good, though, I think.
Yeah, I would say that I enjoyed this one more than Into Darkness. But yeah, I agree. They all are really good. I think I like the first one the best because of Zachary Quinto. He's phenomenal in that first movie.
Well, it's just it's such a good dynamic between him and Kirk in that first movie too. It's just the whole kind of them hating each other essentially, and having to learn to work together and everything. That movie just works really well in my opinion. And Spock, it's interesting because every character has stuff to do in this movie. Scotty almost seems like he has maybe more to do than he has had in previous movies, and I think that's partially because Simon Pegg wrote the movie. But I almost feel like Spock doesn't have as much. Like, it's not as Spock heavy, I feel like, as most Star Trek movies are.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was on purpose. I think they wanted to give the other crew members
A little bit more time to shine.
something to do other than Spock, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Even though Spock is my favorite character in these movies.
Yeah. Well, I also, so one of the notes I wrote, and of course I don't have my notes with me. I should have grabbed those. But one of the notes I wrote was that it's in the beginning of this film, it's interesting to see Kirk kind of being over it. You know, he's borderline kind of bored, which is not how Kirk has ever really been portrayed. You know, Kirk has always been the type that wants to be out there in space, flying spaceships. You know, when you watch, like, I know you haven't seen the William Shatner movies, but in like the first movie, he's an admiral who no longer is flying and you know, kind of misses it and stuff. And so it was interesting to see that, but I also really like that it's obviously just a promise they're setting up for a character arc for him. You know, that he's going to eventually come back around, which, so I really like Kirk's storyline in this movie. And I also really like Spock's storyline, which is Spock Prime has died, and it's got to be the weirdest thing ever to know that your future self has now passed away.
Yeah.
And it's so, even though he's not going to live the same life that that Proc Spime lived, because they created an alternate timeline, it's still got to be weird to kind of know your end date almost a little bit. I mean, anything something different obviously could happen to this Spock, but it's got to mess with your brain, which it does with Spock. And
it just reminded him that one day he's going to die, and it kind of it messed him up because it wasn't just anybody, it was him.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he even says, I think at one point, you know, fearing one's death is illogical. So he's grappling with that because he knows he shouldn't be scared of death. As a Vulcan, it's illogical. Everybody dies. You shouldn't be afraid of it. But Bones, I love too that Bones and Spock are paired up in this movie, since they don't necessarily like each other. They obviously respect each other, but they don't get along necessarily. But and then Bones says something to the effect of, you know, fear of death is what makes us human, and so he's kind of appealing to that human half of Spock, which I think is pretty great. So yeah, I really like their storylines. And then of course in the beginning they both say, you know, after this mission I need to talk to you about something, and Spock's like, yes, there's something I need to share with you as well. And at the end of the movie they decide, you know, they don't know it, but we as an audience know that they have changed their minds on both things.
Yeah. I love that bookend.
Yeah.
I love the way it ended. It was because it you assume that even though they never said anything to one another about their future plans, you assume that because they're very good friends and know each other so well that they knew what each other was gonna tell the other person. Maybe not so much Kirk knowing what Spock was gonna say. Because I don't did he know that Spock Prime?
I don't think so, because Spock reveals it to Bones, but I don't think he tells anybody.
Yeah.
Other than Bones.
I don't even think he tells Uhura. Yeah.
At least not. I don't remember if he tells her at the end or not, but yeah, I think he only reveals it to Bones, and so Kirk has no idea, I don't think, because Spock has kept it to himself.
Yeah. But I think they were both having similar feelings. They were like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Right, yeah. I love that shot too of in the beginning, like the music that plays, Michael Giacchino kind of plays the piano version of the Star Trek theme, and we see Kirk walking down the hall of the Enterprise, and he's doing the captain's log, and he says, you know, we're on day 966, which, by the way, I realized was a Easter egg, because Star Trek, the original series, started in September of 1966, so 966. They're on their 966th day of their 5-year mission, and he's saying, you know, it's starting to feel episodic, which that also kind of was I thought was kind of funny. But seeing him open the closet and there's just just his uniform, just 8 different versions of the same thing. He's just like, it's just kind of
it's become very mundane, and the ordinary it's the space exploration has lost its luster.
Yeah. There's a great line where he says, if the universe is truly endless, are we grasping for something that is forever out of reach or something like that? Pretty close to that. And I thought that was a pretty great line. I was like, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I really like the opening of the movie a lot. I think it works really well. And then they visit the Yorktown. They're going to have, it's not really like what do you call it? When they go like offshore, it's not like a leave or whatever, but they go to visit the Yorktown, which is a space station that has been built for the Federation so that Federation planets can have kind of a neutral space to come together and I don't know, conduct business or whatever the Federation does. And it's a huge space station. It's bigger than anything I think like Deep Space Nine. There's a whole TV show about a space station called Deep Space Nine, and it is nowhere near as large as this space station is in this movie.
Nah, this Yorktown is as big as a moon.
Yeah, it's huge. It looks great too. Like the visual effects in that I think work really well, and it looks awesome.
Agreed.
And then while they're there, they get their mission, which is there's I forget exactly what the mission was, but there's a woman that says like her crew is stranded and they need to go help her crew. She's like kind of an alien woman. And when they get there, they realize they've been duped, I guess you could say. And there's like, it almost looks like from far away, it looks like kind of nanobot type stuff. There's like this swarm of ships or something, and they completely destroy the Enterprise, which I had totally forgotten about. I forgot that the Enterprise completely gets annihilated in this movie.
I did too. Did we talk about the first time that we saw this movie?
Well, I saw it in the theater, but I guess we didn't. We didn't really talk about it. No. Sorry.
Yeah. I had saw it in the theater too when it
was first released.
When it first released, and I completely forgot that the Enterprise was destroyed. Let alone destroyed so early in the film, like the first act. So it's a cool scene that's on right now, actually. But it's a very like visually striking scene.
Yes,
we see the swarm just ripping the ship apart.
Yeah,
and they kind of like stab the interior of the ship and like expand. Like that was really cool.
Yeah. So I've got my 2 favorite moments of that whole sequence. And the first one is when they realize they're being attacked and Kirk is like, warp us out of here. And Sulu can't engage the warp drive. And so they yell to Scotty. They're like, Scotty, what's going on with the warp drive? And he's like, the nacelles. And it cuts to outside, and the way the camera, Justin Lin did a fantastic job with this movie, I think. And the way the camera kind of, you see the saucer and everything looks normal, but the camera kind of moves up and you see the nacelles of the ship have been completely detached from the body of the ship, and they're just starting to kind of float away into space. You're just like, oh. That was an amazing moment. And then my second favorite moment in that sequence is when they realize they're screwed and they have to abandon ship, and Kirk is the very last one off. He gets into an escape pod, which is on the bridge, which is kind of weird because I don't feel like you ever see that unless it's like behind a wall or something. But he gets into one of my favorite shots in the movie because it's from inside the escape pod. You see him get in, he turns around, you see the bridge, and then the escape pod gets sent out, and you see the saucer, which has been badly damaged, crashing into the planet, and you can see Kirk's reflection in the glass, and I was like, chef's kiss.
No, I agree. I had the same reaction. I was like, like you can feel his his despair
Yeah.
in that scene through that reflection.
And he's got to feel like, you know, he's failed his crew and everything because he's the captain of the ship, and the ship, he had to abandon the ship and had to have everybody else abandon the ship. And the swarm of ships are also kind of grabbing escape pods as they go out, which is kind of crazy. So they're kidnapping people, I guess, as well. And that's shortly around there is when we meet Krall. Krall is actually on the Enterprise. He ends up boarding the Enterprise to try to find that weapon. Although I don't know if we know that just yet. But we do. That's our first.
No, we don't know that just yet. I just got to the part where they just snatched Sulu's escape pod, and I thought he died for a minute.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that would have sucked. Especially because they set it up. You know, we see his daughter and his husband, I guess, is, you know, at Yorktown. So that would have been a bummer. And we even see when Yorktown gets later on in the movie, when Yorktown starts getting attacked, we see them again, and they're like running to safety. Yeah, that would have been a bummer to see. I mean, it would have been a bummer if any of the main characters had been killed off. But
no, just some red shirts.
Just some red shirts, yeah. Some people getting sucked out into space. Scotty escapes does he put himself in like a torpedo? That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I think so.
And then he's got like a tablet. He's in the torpedo, and it looks like he's got like a little tablet. So I don't know if he's able to somewhat navigate it, but it crashes pretty hard onto that planet.
Yeah, and then he almost falls over.
He almost falls off the cliff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a shot that I just saw of the saucer of the Enterprise that it like crashed into the planet, and you see the pods like going like falling into the atmosphere, but you're looking up, and in the foreground is the saucer. That was an amazing shot.
That's all. I didn't notice the pods. That's real. I have to go back and watch that part again. That's amazing. Yeah, so then the crew is basically stranded on this planet that, you know, they don't have a way off. And they're all scattered. You know, Kirk and Chekhov are together. Spock and Bones are together, but Spock has been seriously injured. Scotty's by himself. And Sulu and Uhura have been captured by Krall and his gang. I don't know what the species of aliens are that they are, but Krall and his gang have kidnapped them and a few others of the crew.
Yeah.
And then Scotty eventually meets Jaylah, which I don't know if you read IMDb trivia. I read a little bit of it today. And apparently when Simon Pegg was writing the script with Doug Young, they wanted Jaylah's character to be like Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone. And so that's what they named the character at first. But they said they got tired of writing out Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone, so then they just changed it. They shortened it to Jaylah, and then that's how she became Jaylah, was because they just never came up with anything after that. So it's literally basically just Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, I did read that. I thought that was funny. But having seen this movie before, I never knew who played Jaylah, but this second time watching it, I immediately knew it was Sofia Boutella.
Yeah.
Because I guess after seeing so many movies with her in it, I just I recognized her face within the makeup.
Yeah.
Also, it was because she was doing her own choreography,
right?
Or fight choreography. Because she started her career out as a dancer, I believe, and then moved into movies. But I was like, that has to be Sofia Boutella, because I don't know of any other actor any other female actor that could do their own fight choreography
like that.
Like that.
Yeah. I was trying to remember. This was not the first movie I saw her in. It looks like it was probably Kingsman: The Secret Service was the first movie I saw her in. And then it would have been this movie, and then she did like The Mummy. Yeah. See, I had, because of Kingsman, I think I knew she was in this movie, or maybe I just remember seeing her name like in the cast credit, list or whatever. I don't know, but I did know who she was going into this movie. That Jaylah was played by Sofia Boutella. And I think she does a good job in this movie too. She's really actually kind of a cool character.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like how I kind of like her kind of broken English, especially when she's talking about the music. She's like, "I have the beats and the shouting."
Yeah, she was listening to was Public Enemy.
Yeah. Fight the Power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant the movie. Like I was like Public Enemy. I was thinking Johnny Depp, Public Enemies.
Oh.
I was like, I don't think she's in that. Yeah, I like that. And then it's Scotty's like, "Is this music?" And I like too is how Scotty is like a genius engineer, but because she had been living on the Franklin, that's the other thing. Scotty, Jaylah and Scotty, she recognizes the Starfleet emblem.
Right.
And she brings him back to where she's been living, her home, she says. And you find out that it is the USS Franklin that had gone missing 100 years ago or something like that. And because she had been living there for a little while, she had learned how to kind of set things up. Because I remember at one point, when he asks, "Is that music?" She's like, "Yeah, I did this to this, and now I can play music through, whatever." And he's like, "Oh, that's actually pretty clever." And then there's when they need to use the music as like a weapon.
Yeah,
later
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, exactly. Scotty's trying to set it up, and she's like, "Just let me do it." Which I thought
that might be my favorite scene in the movie. I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but when they use the
Beastie Boys,
the Beastie Boys,
yeah,
to distract or to disrupt the signal.
Yeah,
I thought that was an awesome scene.
I agree.
Yeah, Kirk's like, good choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's a throwback to the first film, and but it works. And part of me is like, don't reuse the same song you used in the first movie, but it works so well.
It works, yeah.
And I couldn't help but smile when Kirk goes, "Nice choice," or "Great choice," And then it cuts to the outside, and and the Franklin, I guess, is actually like destroying all these things and sabotages. I mean, it just works really well. It's like it's very similar. It reminded me of when they played "Immigrant Song" by Led Zeppelin
in Thor Ragnarok.
It had that same kind of feeling,
Yeah, that's the same thing. And then Bones is like, "Is this classical music?" So I was like, "I think so."
Yeah, I wrote that down. I was like, "Classical music? That's great." This classical music? I believe it is.
I mean, to them, it would be classical music.
Yeah, I know. It'd be 400 years old or whatever. I know. Yeah. So, yeah, it's true. I wonder what they would call classical music. Like, is this the ancient the ancient sounds of Mozart?
Yo, their the costume design.
Yeah.
Their uniforms. I love them.
Do you?
I love their uniforms in this movie with the jackets and the 3 yellow stripes.
Yeah.
Oh man, they look so cool.
Their main uniform, I think I kind of prefer the first movie and Into Darkness a little more, but I don't hate these. They have like more of almost a mock turtleneck kind of thing going on, where it gives it a little bit more of a formal look, which I think it actually kind of works too.
Yeah, it looks more like a uniform.
Yeah.
In the first 2 movies, they look like smocks.
Right. Which is a little bit closer to how it was on the original series.
Yeah.
But this keeps is faithful to the original series, but updates it to, like you said, make it look a little bit more like a uniform or a little bit more formal. And so I like it, but I love the other costumes, like you said, the jacket that Kirk and Chekhov have with the stripes.
Yeah,
I
love
look
them.
Great. Yeah, I agree. So how do you feel about Crawl as a villain, played by Idris Elba?
I like him, but it could have been improved upon.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think Idris Elba did the best he could with what he had. I wish that they had written some more emotional scenes for him
Mm-hmm.
because his backstory is cool. Once they figure out who he is,
Yeah.
I think he gets much better once
Yes.
they realize his true identity.
Right.
But before that, he's just like a
Generic.
regular,
Yeah.
run of the mill Marvel villain.
Right. And I think, like you said, Idris Elba plays him great.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I really like that twist. Or I don't know if it's a twist, but the reveal that Krall used to be the captain of the USS Franklin. And he has Captain Edison, right? Balthazar Edison, I think.
Yeah.
And he has figured out how to basically keep himself from aging, I guess, by like absorbing kind of the life force from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know exactly how he does that. They might explain it, and I just don't remember. But he is able to keep himself alive because of that. But he obviously doesn't look like himself. Although, as the movie goes on, and he does kind of take the life force from more and more people, he gets closer and closer.
Starts to look like himself.
He doesn't ever get all the way back to Idris Elba.
Yeah.
But he does look more and more human, I guess you could say.
I always assumed that he had gained that ability from being on that planet for so long, and that's maybe it kind of changes his physiology, and he was able to do that. That's what I assumed.
That could make sense. And maybe because how long has Jaylah been on the planet? She's been there for a while, right? But not as long as him.
Not 100 years.
Yeah, not as long as he has. Very true. Jaylah's got some interesting gadgets too. She's got this like cloud stuff that she shoots out.
Yeah,
that, like,
I called it a clay cloud.
yeah. It hardens, which is really kind of interesting. And like I like it's one of those. I like how this movie sets some stuff up to use later, kind of Chekhov's gun type of thing, like you said.
Yeah, it does that a lot in this movie, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too. So I like that we first see it because she said she set up traps around her home, and Kirk and Chekhov set it off, and they're stuck in the clay cloud, and then we see him use it again later with the motorcycle when he's the distraction. And same thing with her kind of projection thing when Jaylah first shows up. She's fighting off these other alien guys, and they swing at her, and she's just a projection that she's like a hologram in certain spots. And they use that again later with the motorcycle distraction scene as well.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
This movie has an excellent use of Chekhov's gun.
Right. Simon Pegg and Doug Young did a good job there.
The makeup the makeup in all these movies are good, but I really like the design of Krall. And his like sidekick or whatever. I don't know his name.
I don't know his name either.
But he's played by the same guy that was in played Sub-Zero in
Oh really? That's cool.
The latest Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of makeup, there's a young ensign character who plays kind of a vital role in the movie. And she's got an interesting it's part CGI, obviously. But she's got interesting makeup where like the back of her head can
claws
open
on the
up.
back of her head. Yeah.
It reminded me of the face hugger from Alien.
Yeah, me too. It wasn't quite as scary as that.
No.
But yeah, it definitely reminded me of that as well.
A very interesting place to hide the weapon. That's where Kirk, we see at one point Kirk is like, hey, I need you for something. And she's like, okay. And then we don't ever see, we see her again, but she's captured in Krall's. He's one of Krall's prisoners. She is one of Krall's prisoners. And then it's revealed that he gave her that weapon, which we didn't even talk about the opening of the movie where Kirk is trying to present that piece of the weapon to this race of aliens who are like they're questioning the motivation behind it. They're like, well, why don't they want it anymore? What's wrong with it? It turns out those aliens are small, and there's a great line in that after Kirk gets beamed back, he goes, I ripped my shirt again, which is definitely an Easter egg for the old show because Shatner used to rip his shirt all the time. So anyway, then they put that that because the aliens didn't accept that gift, they just stow it, they log it and stow it on the Enterprise. And so I believe that is how Krall finds out that the Enterprise has it, is because it was logged into the Federation or whatever Starfleet computer. And so he is looking for that weapon, and Ensign, I forget her name, but Ensign whatever has it in the back of her head, and she ends up giving it to him because he threatens to kill Sulu, even though Sulu tells her not to, but she does it anyway. And then she gets killed, which is a real bummer for her.
Yeah, that bummed me out. I was like, oh.
He ends up using that weapon on her. So that kind of was a bummer. This scene just happened and it reminded me, it's another one of my favorite jokes. I really like Karl Urban in this. I think he does a good job as Bones. I think he, again, just really kind of embodies the character well. And he's with Spock and they get surrounded and he goes, well, at least I won't have to die alone. And then they beam Spock out. He goes, well, that's just typical.
Yeah, they really play well off of each other. There was a joke. I can't remember exactly what the joke was, but it's when he was trying to treat his injury and pull that thing out of Spock.
Right. I know what the joke is. We'll have to bleep it because we try to make this family friendly. But But Bones says something about something being horse and Spock is like, I don't know what excrement has to do with anything.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then Bones cauterizes the wound and he tries to he's like, what's your favorite color? And Spock's like, what? And then he cauterizes the wound and he goes, they say it hurts less if it's a surprise. And he's like, to use a parlance that you are familiar with, that is horse.
Yeah, that was it. I laughed very hard at that joke.
That's a great joke.
They play so well off of each other. And then there's a part where they was stuck and they were sitting down, and Bones makes another joke. And Spock starts laughing, and Bones looks over at Spock and is like, oh no, you're delirious.
Right. So Leonard Nimoy on the original series obviously very rarely showed emotion like that. But there are a few episodes where he does, because something bad is, something has affected him. And so one of the podcasts I listened to is called Mission Log. And when they were doing the old series, they basically were always like, a smiling or laughing Vulcan is never a good sign. And so I feel like that's exactly what Bones was thinking at that moment. He was like, oh no.
Like, oh no.
So they are attempting to rescue the other people, right? That's what the main thing is.
Right.
They're trying to get Uhura and Sulu and the rest of the crew back, but they need to distract Krall, obviously. So there's an old motorcycle that was on the Franklin. And so Kirk, actually, one of the notes I wrote was when you first see Kirk and Jaylah on that motorcycle and they come out of the Franklin, CGI is bad in that. Like,
yeah, it's not great.
It looks okay at first, and then the camera comes behind them, and you can really tell they are
not there.
Added later or something. Yeah, it did not look good. And most of the CGI is great in this movie, but that one shot just was not.
You could tell it was last minute. That was probably like the last thing they did before the movie came out.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, maybe it was a last minute addition or something. But I like that. I remember that scene playing out. I think they played Sabotage in the trailer. And that, him riding the motorcycle plays. But in the movie, I think it works really well. And I like the whole clay cloud and the hologram stuff. Even though the hologram stuff doesn't quite make sense to me, because you'd think it would match the movements he's making. So if he's following a certain path, the hologram would not follow necessarily the road that it's on, but that's how it works in the movie. But again, it's the future, so who knows?
Yeah. I really like the right before the motorcycle distraction, when they're on the ship and they're looking at the video of the crew of of the Franklin
crew. Yeah.
and you see Idris Elba's character. You see Captain Edison in the background, but his head is turned.
Yep.
And we see it, but Kirk doesn't see it.
Yeah.
Because he turns his head as soon as like right before he shows up, he turns and walks toward the camera. I was like, that is subtle, but it's so good.
Yep.
Like that is great cinematography.
I wrote that same note. He turns right before Idris turns towards the camera. And we don't he even blocks the TV, so we as an audience actually can't see
don't see him turn back. Yeah.
Right. And don't see it. Because I think if he hadn't blocked the TV a little bit, we would have seen it. Idris Elba is so recognizable that we would have been like, hold on, that was Idris. I swear I just saw Idris Elba on that TV screen. And so, yeah, that was like, it was just really, really well done.
Yeah, that did. Yeah, Simon Pegg did a really good job at planting Easter eggs and the use of Chekhov's gun. Like this is a very well written plot.
Yeah, I think so too.
Even though Crawl's motivations are a little weak.
Yeah.
As far as like story and like moving the story along and setups and payoffs is very, very well done.
Right. So speaking of that, we find out that Crawl, which we already mentioned, Crawl was Captain Edison of the Franklin. And his whole motivation is basically he was a soldier. He was in the military before he became into Starfleet. And he doesn't agree with the Federation's like kind of principles of peace and working with the Romulans. And I think there's another race of beings he's, doesn't like either. And, but he joined Starfleet. He was the captain of the ship, but then the ship got stranded on this planet and he felt abandoned by the Federation because nobody ever came to rescue him. And so there's just a lot of hate towards the Federation. That's basically his whole motivation is he hates the Federation and he wants the Federation to be no more. And so his plan, I guess, in the movie is to steal this weapon, go to the Yorktown and destroy the space station, which I guess would just be a big enough blow to the Federation that I remember before we started recording, you and I were asking each other, like, is he trying to blame it on a certain group of people to get like a war started again? But they don't ever say anything like that in the movie. I don't think so.
No. And I think the movie could have benefited from that. Going back to what I said about his motivations being weak, we could have used a little more scenes talking about his anger and resentment toward the Federation. And he's clearly a fascist.
Right.
So we could have had a few more scenes. What's the word I'm looking for? Elaborating or building upon his fascist perspective.
I agree. I feel like that's probably the movie's weakest points are his motivation and his plan, I guess. But even still, I think it's a really entertaining movie that works pretty well. It just has the Marvel villain.
Yeah. I know we talked about it before, but I really love the makeup in this movie. Like he is. You said Idris Elba has an instantly recognizable face. He is unrecognizable.
Yeah, no, you can't tell at all. Yeah. If you didn't know he was playing the bad guy, you wouldn't. Because he also he puts on an accent too, and so you can't really tell it's him talking either.
Yeah. He's pretty good at doing accents too. I remember I saw. It wasn't until like maybe 3 or 4 movies. I had seen him in 3 or 4 movies before I realized he wasn't American.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how that, like, I guess it's because there's so many kind of different. I mean, I guess there's different like British accents too, but I was gonna say there's so many different kind of American accents that.
Yeah.
it seems like European actors are really good at doing American accents, and even Australian actors are really good at doing American accents to the point where you can't. We don't notice it as much. I remember
Hugh Jackman is one of the best.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman does a fantastic. Well, the first Colin, I talked about this years ago when we did Minority Report. John and I did, but Colin Farrell. That was probably, I think, the first Colin Farrell movie I ever saw was Minority Report, and he plays an American in that movie. And I remember buying the DVD and popping in the special features, and it was like an interview with him, and he was like, "Oh, working with Steven Spielberg," and I was like, "What?" My mind was blown. Because I would never guess that he was Irish, because he did a flawless American accent in that movie, in my opinion. So
yeah, I knew he was Irish because the first thing I had seen him in was Daredevil.
Oh, okay, yeah. And he uses the accent in that movie. Yep. Yeah. So, but you're right. Hugh Jackman is really good at it. I mean, there's a lot of them are good at it. There's a couple people who are not as good at it, like Sam Worthington. I don't think is very good at it.
No, I don't. Apparently, I was talking about it with somebody online. In the comment section, you know how crazy the comment section on IG can get. But apparently I'm in the minority. I don't think Charlie Hunnam has a very good American accent.
No, yeah, you can kind of tell that he struggles with it. That he's pretending. Yeah.
And it was weird because he himself said that he doesn't really know what kind of accent that he has, right? Because he's been doing American movies for so long that he kind of lost his British, native accent, but it's not quite American. It's like somewhere in between,
right?
And he said even back home, he never really had. Because, like we said before, there are different types of British accents. His was a very generalized British accent. So now combining that with the way he's learned to speak it in American movies, he talks funny.
That's kind of funny. I can see that. Another actor who I don't think is great at it, but he's so good in everything that none of us care. And I could be in the minority here, but I feel like I can always hear Liam Neeson. He always has like a hint of an accent whenever he.
Liam Neeson. I don't think Liam Neeson ever does an American accent. He just uses his own voice.
I'm pretty sure, like in the Taken movies, he's supposed to be an American. I think. I could be wrong.
I know he's supposed to be, but
but he doesn't.
like Gerard Butler. Yeah. Like he's just using his regular accent.
Right. Well, maybe that's why I think he's not very good at it, because he's just not even trying.
I think there was one movie I saw Gerard Butler in where he was trying to use an American accent. I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't very, very good.
Yeah, I believe it. I always made fun of Sam Worthington in Avatar because he's supposed to be an American in Avatar, and like the last line of that movie, and I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm sure I'm exaggerating it. But it's his birthday, and he ends up like signing off on like the video thing. He's like, "I gotta go," and he goes, "It's my birthday after all." And I was like, "You just gave up, dude." I was like, "You're not even trying anymore." It's my birthday after all.
He has improved. He sounds much better in Way of Water.
Yeah, I didn't notice. I still have never finished Way of Water. I got that screener, and because it was so long, I tried to watch it over the course of a few nights, and then I didn't have access to the screener anymore.
You missed out seeing that in the theater, man. I mean, it's an Avatar movie, so I'm 100% sure that they'll re-release it at least 2 more times.
I'm sure, yeah, most likely.
So you'll definitely have another chance.
When the next one comes out, I'm sure they'll release both.
Yeah. They're gonna show a marathon of the first one and the second one.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is it's just so long. It's like 3 hours and 20 minutes, and then you got to factor in previews and everything. It's just it's a long time to have a babysitter. So, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, I get to see it. And I'm sure I'll buy it when it comes out, but and I'll watch it then. But I liked what I saw actually, and I didn't notice his accent as much in the new one.
I think the first thing that I had seen Idris Elba in was I want to say Daddy's Little Girls, and he did an American accent in that.
Yeah.
And then it may have been American Gangster. It was one of those two movies. It was either Daddy's Little Girls or American Gangster, and in both of those movies, his American accent is impeccable.
Yeah, I agree. I was an extra in Daddy's Little Girls, and I'm trying to remember. I know I recognized Gabrielle Union on that set, and I want to say he looked familiar to me, but maybe he might have just. I didn't. It wasn't like I was like Idris Elba. I didn't know his name at the time, but that was probably the first time I might have seen him was in person, on the set of Daddy's Little Girls. But I'm trying to think of the first like movie that I saw him in. I'm going through his IMDb right now. I didn't watch The Wire, so I don't think it was that. And I never actually saw Daddy's Little Girls in the theater. I bought the DVD when it came out, so it probably was American Gangster for me too.
Yeah, it was one of those two movies for me.
Because after Daddy's Little Girls, I didn't see 28 Weeks Later, and then it would have been American Gangster. And then I know I watched Rock and Rolla, and I remember him in that. But he's got a British accent in that, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, it must have been American Gangster.
And he's also like kind of using a broken English in this movie.
Yeah, he does. And I wonder why that is, because he doesn't. He obviously has an American accent. Or is it a British accent, actually, when when they see the footage of him from as being the captain of the Franklin, when he's doing like his captain's log? I actually don't know.
I think he's using a British accent.
I think you're right. So I wonder if by taking the life force from other people, it like changes his, obviously it changes his genetic makeup or whatever. Physiology. Yeah, thank you. So I wonder if it also affects like his vocal cords and that. I don't know. That's why he's got like kind of an accent now or something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I did think when the motorcycle chase scene, or when the motorcycle scene ends and he like jumps up to save Jaylah right as they're warping, I was like, all right, Justin Lin is adding a little, and granted it was probably written by Simon Pegg and Doug Young, but I was like, Justin Lin's adding a little Fast and Furious to the Star Trek franchise.
Yeah. Okay, so when they're beamed up,
yeah.
Does it look? Does that look? Is that how it looked in the TV show? Because it looks a little different.
It does
than the other two movies.
It does look a little different than the other two movies. No, the TV show. I mean, it was in the '60s, so it looks a lot cheesy.
I mean, obviously it's not. Yeah.
It's basically them. They had to stand still on the old TV show, and it's basically like kind of the outline of their bodies, and it looked all sparkly. And that, so it looks a lot cooler in these movies, but I don't know why I noticed that too. It looks different in this movie, and I don't know why they decided to change it.
I know why they did it, because the Franklin is 100 years old, so it's different technology.
That's true, I guess.
But I was wondering if that if they tried to make it look a little closer to the television show.
Yeah, that just happened. Let me rewind
in this movie.
This movie also does that trope when the Franklin is going down off the cliff, They're just about to crash. They go below the tree line. You don't see it for a second, then it comes out. It's very. Yeah. That is It does kind of look a little more original series, I guess, because like I said, it's kind of sparkly. Yeah. So yeah, I could see them. It almost looks staticky, which is not how the original series was. But
okay.
But yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, that trope, I think that trope is a trope that kind of, at least it wasn't like they went down and did they make, like it was pretty quick at least. It was like below the tree line, then up. So it was okay. Yeah. But like I remember even Superman Returns, I think does that at one point. The plane goes down. And then it comes into frame and you're like, okay, we get it. Yeah, they didn't die.
What? That was a movie I watched recently that did that. I can't remember what it was.
Too many movies, I think, do it.
Yeah. I don't mind it though.
It's not. I mean, I didn't hate it in this. I just remember. I was like, it's just one of those. It's just a trope, I guess.
I do like that scene though.
I do too, and I love Sulu's reaction once they finally. Actually, he's like, this is pretty great.
Like that actually worked.
Yeah, I also really like Sulu's reaction when Kirk goes, "You can fly this thing, right?" And he's like, "Are you kidding me, sir?" One thing that's interesting that I didn't think about watching it this time around because I hadn't seen Into Darkness in a while. But apparently at the end of Into Darkness, Carol Marcus, played by Alice Eve, joins the crew of the Enterprise, and yet she's not seen or even mentioned in this movie.
Yeah, they don't even mention her. I thought that was weird. I was gonna ask you about that last night, but I figured we just talk about it here. But yeah, I was wondering like where did she go? Why didn't they?
I have no idea.
Mention her at all.
I don't know if I'm sure Alice Eve would have come back, but I guess they just didn't. Maybe Simon Pegg and Doug Young just couldn't figure out where to have how to include her in the movie. I don't know, so she's just not in it. But the fact that there's no mention of her is kind of weird. You'd think that'd have been like in the beginning. He could have even said in his monologue, ever since Dr. Marcus left or something. Like blah blah blah. Just something, but no mention. How do you like the design of the USS Franklin?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love the design of the
really
Franklin.
Cool looking too. I agree.
It's cool. I love the way that the outside of the ship looks, the way it's designed, but I also love the inside.
Yeah,
I love how it's retro futuristic. Like it's
a great way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's old, but it's new to us because it's different. It's in the future, but I love the set design for the Franklin. It looks like it might stink in there.
Yeah, it's very true.
And of course, Michael Giacchino does a phenomenal job for the score yet again.
Yeah, I agree. This one doesn't have like the first. Maybe it's just because the first one was so new.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But like the first one, I feel like had some memorable score moments, and I don't feel that way with this one as much, except for the opening with that piano, that beautiful piano that he plays over Kirk's monologue. But it still is, the music works for the movie perfectly, and yeah, he's proving to be one of the greats.
Yeah, it's really good. At the rate that Michael Giacchino is going, like he might be mentioned with John Williams.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, John Williams obviously has had. John Williams is like 90 something, right? 91 or maybe even older than that. So he's obviously had more time. And so if Michael Giacchino is still composing into his 90s like John Williams is, I would not be surprised if we put him up there with John Williams at that point. I mean, he has done so many good scores that and I think his scores are very John Williams-esque as well. There's a John Williams kind of feel to his music as well that I think is another reason why I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of gets I don't know what I'm trying to say, if his body of work gets kind of compared to John Williams in the future, I guess you would say. But yeah,
there is a sense of magic to their scores.
Yeah,
I would even kind of say the same for Alan Silvestri. But more so John Williams and Michael Giacchino. They I don't know. I can't describe it because there are a number of great composers. Danny Elfman. Like I said,
Hans Zimmer,
Alan Silvestri, Hans Zimmer. But there's something that they do with the horns and the strings that like they do that little flutter.
Yeah.
And it's just you can't know. I haven't heard anyone else do it. No one can do it like they can do it. I was listening to the score for Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone. I think this might be a hot take. I think that's John Williams' best score.
Wow. That would be a hot take, I think. But I agree that it is up there. I mean, when I think of John Williams, I think of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park. Yeah. But Harry Potter is included in that list of those iconic scores. And so, I mean, you can't you can't deny it. Even there was some backlash on the internet recently because, well, it was recently as of this recording. By the time the episode comes out, it'll be old news. But
yeah,
HBO, or I guess Max, which is now, it's not HBO Max anymore, right? Now it's just Max. But anyway, they announced that they are going to do a television series based off of the Harry Potter books, one book a season, basically. And when they announced it, they did like a video announcement, and people were complaining that they showed the Hogwarts from the movies and they played the John Williams music from the movies. They're like, is this going to be a new thing, or are we just going to reuse all the old stuff? So
right.
But I mean, like, what I would hate to be the composer for this new Harry Potter show, because nothing is going to be as good as the John Williams thing.
I honestly think it's going to be Michael Giacchino.
Well, that could very well be possible.
There's only a handful of people that you could get to make something that can even touch that score.
Yeah.
And when I say it's the best score, I mean like the entirety of
from beginning to end,
the musical composition of that whole movie. Because I think people would put Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park up there because not just because of the score, but because of the
theme,
the status of the movie itself.
Oh, that too. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And the themes and the character motifs have become so iconic and ingrained in our minds, that whenever we think of Jurassic Park, we immediately think of the theme.
Well, that's the same thing with Harry Potter, which is why I can't really blame HBO Max for using that music to announce the series. But
the thing about Harry Potter is that it came out so late, so older people, like, when I say older people, I mean people older than us.
Sure, yeah.
They're not, when they think of John Williams, they're not really thinking of Harry Potter. They're thinking of Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Superman.
Right. Well, that's what I was about to say. We just talked about that in the Shazam episode that we recorded, that they keep using John Williams Superman music every time Henry Cavill has a cameo as Superman. And it's because, I guess it's just that music is ingrained into our brains to be the Superman music. I mean, they used it on Smallville. And so that is the Superman music. And so,
but I think that's at least to me, I think that's just one of the drawbacks of traditionalism, because every time we get a new Batman, we get a new Batman theme.
Right. That's very true.
But that's not. But why does Superman have to have the same music every time?
Well, I mean, we were when we did the Shazam episode, we were complaining about it because you and I agree that 2-note theme from Batman vs Superman, that dun dun would have been better, because it would have been it was the music created for Man of Steel. It was the Henry Cavill Superman.
That's Henry Cavill's theme,
right? Yeah. So I don't know. It's Danny Elfman did try to use his Batman music for Justice League, but I agree. Every time we get a Batman movie, we do get a different. We're not using the same old. Yeah. Ben
Affleck has 2 themes in the same universe, and they both sound fantastic.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I prefer the second theme over the first one. I prefer his music from Zack Snyder's Justice League over BVS, but
yeah. Well, I guess we've run out of stuff to talk about for Star Trek Beyond, so let's go ahead and rate this movie and wrap this episode up. Okay. I'll go first. I really like this movie. I'm a big Star Trek nerd, and I think this movie works pretty well. I love the sabotage scene. Like you said, the costume design, the makeup design, the acting, I think, is all really good. I really enjoy it. I would just take off a couple points probably for villain motivation. We could have used a little more there. But yeah, for me, I think it's a solid. I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. I don't know, what are those little weapons called that Krall is using? I don't know. Whatever that is, I'll give it 4 out of 5 USS Franklins.
Yeah, I would just be echoing everything you said. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5. Starfleet emblems.
Nice. Okay. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Star Trek Beyond. You can always let us know at cinemaheroes.com. You can leave us a comment on our Instagram or tweet at us. Both handles are at cinemaheroes. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below what you think about Star Trek Beyond. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you however you want to reach out to us. I think that about wraps it up for this episode, though. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. She's like, this is why I joined Starfleet? No. She didn't say that. I'm going to cut that part out. That was bad.